And that's not a new trend. It's been going on for a while. I think it's just becoming newly aware to a lot of the wirehouse breakaways that there's a significant amount of enterprise value, significantly more than what they actually being told of what their business is worth. That business could be worth in the RIA PE space upwards of $24 million.
Yeah.
And that's a real number, right? So that's 6 times revenue. That's a real number. But what happens is that firm may double or triple over the next 10 years, right? That number on a double could easily be worth $60 million,
Sure.
and on triple could be worth over $100 million. And that's now generational money. Just to get everybody on the same page, that we see out there in the marketplace is these advisors are realizing that the wirehouse, kind of the old expression, the kind of that shine on the penny is wearing off. At one point in time, I want to be able to attract high net worth or ultra high net worth clients. If I want to be able to retain those folks, I need to be at a named firm. And a lot of that is what people were thinking is because of access to product, access to the brand, the reputation, and the marketplace has really shifted away from that. And that's what I'm not sure everyone in a wirehouse even understands that. One of the areas that I think about all the time is just a simple concept around enterprise value. When you're seeing these multi-billion-dollar firms that are breaking away from wirehouses and starting their own independent firm, right? There's an element of autonomy, there's an element of control, there's an element of service, there's an element of support, but there's also an element of enterprise value. And the enterprise value is significantly more than what most people realize is available to them. I can build this thing to really generate some real wealth. And when you start thinking of selling a business for 50 or $100 million, and it's easy and it's achievable under today's metrics, that's the opportunity that I think a lot of wirehouse advisors don't understand.
Hey everyone, thank you so much for joining the podcast today. Really appreciate it. Once again, have on Jeff Nash, the CEO of Bridgemark, who has a ton of information to talk about the topic we're going to talk about today. And it's just financial advisors that are considering making a move away from their wirehouse. We've helped thousands of financial advisors in that exact position do their due diligence, avoid mistakes, make sure they use the best practices of financial advisors before them to have the best possible experience moving to a new firm. And in the news almost daily, you're seeing a multi-billion-dollar firm transitioning from one wirehouse to another organization. We're having conversations with more wirehouse advisors that are considering what else is out there than ever before. So we felt like it would be a really good day just to talk and discuss a little bit about the topic. Jeff, I really appreciate you hopping on as always.
Yeah, absolutely, Corey. It's been great. Thanks.
Nice Patriots win yesterday, by the way. We haven't talked today, but
That's been a good one. Been a good day. You know, they're not back yet, but they're getting there. Headed in the right direction, as we say.
I love it. So, Jeff, we've been talking about this for weeks now. We're having conversations with
Mhm.
more wirehouse financial advisors. There's just a ton of change in the industry, comp changes, resources being pulled back, people really excited about enterprise value and what the flexibility and life looks like on the other side, whether it's at a regional broker dealer, another wirehouse, an independent broker dealer, the RIA world. And there's just a lot of things that I think financial advisors should be aware of and traps that they could potentially avoid by listening to some of the things that we've been discussing over the last couple of weeks. So, I mean, Jeff, if you're a wirehouse financial advisor out there, you're starting to consider, some of your options. What is the top thing that you think they should understand before they start looking and seeing what else is out there?
Well, I think one of the things is just to get everybody on the same page that we see out there in the marketplace is these advisors are realizing that the wirehouse, kind of the old expression, the kind of that shine on the penny is wearing off. Uh, at one point in time, there was a product offering that wasn't largely available outside of the wirehouses. And so the feeling was, okay, if I want to be able to attract high net worth or ultra high net worth clients, if I want to be able to retain those folks, I need to be at a named firm. And and a lot of that is what people were thinking is because of access to product, access to the brand, the reputation, And the marketplace has really shifted away from that. And that's what I'm not sure everyone actually in a wirehouse even understands that is the product side of the world has become ubiquitous. It's out there. Everyone has access to largely the same product. And we're actually seeing some firms in the RIA space have access to more and more specialized product than the wirehouse advisors have even had. Right. So the idea that you have to be at a wirehouse, I think that's an anachronism that doesn't really apply anymore, where there's a time stamping to that when you really start looking at, okay, what is it that you need to service your clients? What is it that you need for yourself? Of course, a lot of the conversations we have with wirehouse advisors, I just don't want to deal with all that stuff. That's a very popular trend. And I don't want to have to go out and find office space and negotiate a lease and find make sure and the computer's not working one day. I want someone to take care of all that. Well, as you know, Corey, and as we deal with this on a regular basis, there are a lot of firms that, again, have looked to be able to solve that on an independent chassis or a flex chassis that gives them that autonomy and that control. And it just really enhances their overall client's ability to service, their overall economics, right? And their long-term future, their long-term opportunity. So I think it starts with just understanding that there isn't really this niche solution that only the wirehouses can solve for. And once you peel that back, and start saying, okay, well, where else could I go? And you actually start curating firms and realizing that there is an entire universe of firms that can be as good or better than an overall offering.
Yeah, I mean, just to piggyback on what you said, I think regardless of what wirehouse you're potentially considering leaving, there's never been more options than there are right now. Whatever you want to outsource, whatever you want to take care of yourself, it really is available out there. But more importantly, pretty much from every wirehouse out there, a previous head of US Wealth or a ex-president of those wirehouses have gone out and they have opened up some sort of independent options for their financial advisors. They still speak your language at the firm that you're currently at and are probably best equipped or at least a really, really great resource to help you kind of decipher in a language that you understand what the other side potentially looks like. They understand what the fears are, what the challenges are, the things that potentially needed to be solved at your firm. And they've most likely solved a lot of those things at another organization. So if it's not a leader of one of the wirehouses, it's a really entrepreneurial financial advisor that's made the move. They've made the leap. They remember all the fears and the challenges that they've had, and they've solved it for financial advisors like yourself that are potentially just considering what else is out there.
It's such a great comment, such a great point, right? I mean, these are folks that have been perennial staunch critics of the RIA space and realizing that, or I shouldn't say realizing, but really out there, internal meetings, internally advocating for why the death of the RIAs, why the wirehouse model is the right model. And then a lot of these folks have ultimately at some point in their career have now left these wirehouse firms and started independent RIAs and have tried to actually build a firm that has an entrepreneurial culture, but a support infrastructure that's modeled after the wirehouses. And and there's a lot of them out there, right? So it's not just one or two. We're seeing a lot of it. Over the last couple of years, we've seen a half a dozen of these firms start up or more. And that's just in the last couple of years. And these firms are starting to have some real sustainability and some scale to provide that platform. So yeah, it really is something that I think people should at some point take the blinders off and just picking their head up to just look around of what else might be out there. Because the opportunity is enormous. What we see out there from the opportunity is some of it is the whitewashing of, hey, it's not really all that great out there, or you're not going to have this, or you're not going to have that. One of the areas that I think about all the time is just a simple concept around enterprise value. When you're seeing these multi-billion dollar firms that are breaking away from wirehouses and starting their own independent firm, right? There's an element of autonomy, there's an element of control, there's an element of service, there's an element of support, but there's also an element of enterprise value in these things. And the enterprise value is significantly more than what most people realize is available to them, And that's become not a new trend. It's been going on for a while. I think it's just becoming newly aware to a lot of the wirehouse breakaways that there's a significant amount of enterprise value, significantly more than what they actually being told of what their business is worth.
For sure. And there's tons of information about it. I feel like I see multiple LinkedIn posts, news publications about financial advisors getting these top valuations, every single day. But I'm really surprised still of how little financial advisors have a true grasp in terms of what the enterprise value looks like. And I don't know if we want to dig into it in detail or not right now, but I'll leave it up to you. But typically when I'm doing the math with a corner office financial advisor, should I stay? Should I go? Sunset in place, make the move on the independent side. I mean, it's anywhere between two to four times the additional after tax value that they would get on the independent side or on an RIA versus a sunset in place solution at a wirehouse.
So it's that and more, right? I mean, in simpler terms, because there's a lot of folks who aren't really ready to retire. So this is about building the enterprise value. And we've seen deals just to move their book of business on the independent channel that have rivaled that of wirehouse and regional firms from 5 years ago. So you think about what a deal looked like at a wirehouse or regional 5 years ago. We're actually seeing similar deals on independents. The difference, of course, is at a wirehouse or regional, you might be in the payout range of a 40, 45, or 50. And we're seeing these deals upwards of 90 and 92 and 95% payout, significantly more, net in your pocket for these advisors, right? So this then gives you the framework to build that independent practice, that which you then hit it on the head, right? After tax benefit could be two times more than the highest value that you're getting from a sunset provision to even as much as four times more. And these are significant, numbers, right? It could be life-changing numbers. If you think about the value of your business being, two times revenue in some cases, and then at ordinary income tax, we've seen and done transactions at six times revenue and even more than that, at capital gains tax for advisors looking to sell and merge their business. The introduction of PE money into the space has made things for the right firms incredibly opportunistic. And that's really about making sure, A, you've got the right firm, you've built it the right way, but the opportunities are available to everyone, especially if you've got some runway and you want to really try to build that sustainable firm.
Yeah, it makes a ton of sense, and the numbers are just truly undeniable when you take a look at them. And it's a really good transition. You were just talking about private equity getting in the M&A space, but also just in the broker dealer space and well as well. It's been one of the, largest reasons why some of the offers out there just to join firm to firm are so high right now. There's obviously a huge arms race going on in between a lot of different firms over there. And I think that's just kind of a good segue into some of the mistakes that we could help financial advisors avoid. When you're taking a look out there, if you're coming from a wirehouse, especially a non-protocol wirehouse, I mean, there's a lot of numbers being thrown out there in news publications, in emails, probably with other recruiters you're having conversations with. I think it's important for you to understand if you're making a move from a wirehouse to another organization, sometimes you're treated a little bit differently than somebody that's making a move from an independent to independent. So I guess what I'm trying to say is a lot of those top line numbers sometimes that's for somebody that already owns their business 100%. The firm knows they're going to bring 100% of that business. Some firms are going to, because of the firm that you're coming from, because of some of the legal limitations you might have, they're going to put a little bit of that economics more on the back end. They're going to take some of the risk off of the front end for them. And if you bring your whole business with you, you still have the ability to get the same amount of money as some of those top line offers that we're talking about. But if you don't, a lot of that risk is put on you in the back end instead of all upfront. And not every firm does it, but it's really important if upfront money is important to you, to make sure that you're really just aligned with the right firms that are gonna, fully support you financially, from and not put it on the back end and not waste a bunch of time.
I think the biggest eye-opening thing from the wirehouse advisors and that I've spoken to, especially more recently, is I think it's some of it is all of the different things that are actually even negotiable. Where there's an element of upfront money, right? Transition money, signing bonus, call it whatever you want, but it's money to make a move between firms. And that's available at a lot of firms, in fact, almost all of them. And of course, wire to wire. But you can also negotiate on the payout. There are fees that can be negotiated on. There's program and platform fees. There's a lot of different components of all of this in the independent side and when you're switching firms. And I think a lot of advisors don't understand all of the different components. And they get lost in it, right? I mean, so it starts off with, okay, which firms should you even consider and why, right? Looking at the local infrastructure and support, and what is the cost of that local infrastructure and support for those that may want that. And all of those things can all be negotiated. And so it really is one of those items that it can be really complicating. And I think that to the complicating factor, it feeds to two things. One is wirehouse advisors can often close down on it and they say, hey, you know what, I'll go from firm A to firm B and it's just a lateral, but it's just simpler. But realistically, they're losing huge opportunity in that. And that's where obviously you and I really try to educate, right, and help, help curate and educate to advisors really finding solutions they may not have even had heard of. Maybe they've heard a little bit about it, but as you start peeling back the layers and as we start working with a lot of these advisors, it's interesting. They may have heard a little bit, and then the next thing you know is they realize, oh, I know someone at that firm. I didn't realize that. Oh, I know someone at this other firm as well. I didn't realize that. And they can actually talk to people they know to actually get real experiences of that as well, right? So there really becomes an unearthing and uncovering of all this of the process that happens.
Yeah, I mean, there's no Zillow for recruiting deals, right? I mean, you can't look up online and see where, hey, I'm a $500 million team with 80% of fee-based business. Like, what should this firm give me? There's no one out there to be able to kind of be that barometer. Where we see these deals all day, every day. There's 14 other people on our team that are doing the same thing. So we just have a ton of people to be able to bounce these ideas off of and see what could be done, and what's a fair deal for sure. Hey, breaking in real quick. I really hope you're enjoying this episode and finding my YouTube channel of value. If you're a high performing financial advisor that can use somebody as a guide or a resource to explore all your transition options out there in the marketplace, I'm a non-biased, independent transition consultant that can help make this process so much easier for you. And another plus, it costs absolutely nothing to work with me. If you want to have a conversation, please feel free to text, call, email, DM me. My contact information is all over this episode, and I'll let you get back to it. Jeff, one thing that's been really interesting to me recently throughout all of this, I know we just talked about deals and how to negotiate them. I've been really shocked recently how many wirehouse financial advisors have seen the value of the RIA space and aren't looking for a deal whatsoever. I mean, they're willing to put all the risk on the line for total control of their business, and they're forgoing the 130% deal to make a move to the RIA channel. And it just happened to me very recently with a $1.8 million producer that I was at a wirehouse. He took a look at all the independent broker dealers out there in the industry, got some really attractive offers, really, really liked the firms. And he came to the point, he said, Corey, I don't want to pay taxes on this money to make a move to another firm. I don't want to be locked in for X amount of years. But he had some economic obligations to pay back to another firm. He had to pay close to $1.5 million back to the wirehouse that he was leaving. And I don't know if a lot of financial advisors know this, but he actually got a loan from a bank where the interest was tax deductible. It didn't keep him at a firm for any X amount of a period. So it was a way for him to be able to get the financial capital that he needed to make the move to the RIA side without being locked into a firm for 10 plus years. So that was something that doesn't always happen, but it was just a really interesting solve that I've seen recently.
I think it's telling of, and I'm going to come back to the PE money and enterprise value, right? It's telling of where the industry is really headed, right? So that $500 million team that you kind of referenced earlier, and this may or may not be the same size as that particular advisor, but they're looking at the bigger picture here and saying, okay, how do I build this thing? And more often than not, when you take a deal and you go from employee to employee and you take a deal, your actual take-home salary after tax, after you've received the deal, is pennies on the dollar, right? Because you've got this phantom income that you're paying taxes on for the next 10 years. And so that phantom income against a low payout grid of somewhere in the 40% range grid, your actual, and then you're paying taxes and benefits and all that, your actual take home could literally be in the 10% range. And I would encourage anyone to run that math, but it could be literally that low. And so being kind of free and clear of that and then building enterprise value, so if we just use some really, really simplified generic numbers, for someone who's got 500 million in fee-based assets under management, they might be generating close to 4 million in revenue, and they would have what the industry defines as 2 million of profit. A profit margin of 50% is not uncommon. And and so that business could be worth in the RIA PE space upwards of $24 million.
Yeah.
And that's a real number, right? So that's 6 times revenue. That's a real number. But what happens is that firm may double or triple over the next 10 years, right? That number on a double could easily be worth $60 million, and
Sure.
on a triple could be worth over $100 million. And that's now generational money. And that's the difference of what you're seeing in firms with younger advisors who are recognizing, I'm in their 40s, I'm in my 50s, and I've got some time in front of me here. I can build this thing to really generate some real wealth. And when you start thinking of selling a business for 50 or $100 million, and it's easy and it's achievable under today's metrics, that's the opportunity that I think a lot of wirehouse advisors don't understand. Clearly, some are, right? You and I are seeing it in the press every day. $1 billion team, $10 billion team, $100 billion team breaking away. And so clearly some are, but we all know there's a lot that are not, that are just sitting there as well, not fully understanding how those economics could actually translate to them, to their benefit for their families.
Yeah, not to discount upfront money at all. There's obviously people that have financial needs. They need to, sit down and convince their spouse that they're not crazy to, move a very high paying, job. That I mean, there's plenty of reasons for it, but at the end of the day, it really is, pennies on the dollar compared to potential enterprise value down the road. And that's a conversation that we're having with advisors all the time.
Yeah,
Um,
I think one other thing that we want to just kind of talk about on this particular podcast is moving the actual act of moving your business, right? Transitioning your business from point A to point B and the operational service and the teams that support that. And I think it's important to note that, again, not all firms are equal in that process. Some firms do a better job than others. There's a lot of electronic signature capabilities in there. There are better platforms, better technologies, better tools and resources. And that's an area that, again, advisors may often gloss over, right? You have a conversation or two with a highly trained and more sales type transition person who says, yes, we can do all those things, but then really there's a digging into that of what's the real level of support for you.
100%. I mean, there are firms out there that are 10 times better at transitioning a firm from your specific firm
Mhm.
than others, hands down. And some of it might have to do with tools and resources or operational structure, but a lot of it is just reps. I mean, there's so many firms out there that have probably moved 100, 200, 300 financial advisors from your firm. And over the time, they've learned best practices from those financial advisors. They've learned things to avoid. They've developed awesome processes along the way that are just going to give you such a competitive advantage along the way. An important thing to know is no firm is going to tell you that they're really inexperienced and bad at transitioning people from your firm. So these are the questions that you have to ask throughout this process. Firms are really good at telling you all of the benefits of why you should join their firms, but it's up to you to figure out where some of the skeletons lie. And that's where we could really help throughout this process for sure. But one other thing to add, Jeff, especially in the wirehouse world, I'm a strong believer of this, especially coming from a non-protocol firm. Having the right attorney to help you throughout this process is almost as important as finding the right firm. I don't know if you've had the same experience throughout your process, but a lot of financial advisors, they will do due diligence. They will sign with an organization that they have fallen in love with and they want to partner with. And they put a lot of trust in that firm that they've done a lot of thought, given a lot of thought into which attorney they should have a conversation with. And that's not always the case. Just like a doctor, just like there are some financial advisors that are better than others, there are some attorneys that are just going to be so much more qualified and have many more reps helping people move from the firm that you're thinking about leaving. And once again, just with those experience, you get the reps. They have the contacts with the attorneys inside of the home office of the firm that you're trying to leave. They know how they're going to react. They know what you can do without ending up in the courtroom versus, another attorney with less qualifications, which is just going to basically interpret what's on your non-compete. So I think that's extremely important to make sure that you put a lot of thought and interview quite a few people to make sure who the right fit is for you.
Oh, no question, right? I mean, an attorney who gives you not great guidance, we'll call it that, can really cost you a lot of money in the long term. It's really important to find that. I honestly remember back in my days when I used to work for an independent, very large independent broker dealer, and we had a lot of advisors coming from one particular firm that was a non-protocol firm, and our general counsel was actually on a first name, almost friend basis with the general counsel of that firm. And for those advisors that moved the right way, it was like, hey, no problem. And those that didn't, then it was like, all right, how much do we owe? It was, or how much does the advisor owe? Right? It was a very clear map and from going from one firm to the other, and it was very telling. The advisors that did it the right way were in a much better position as long as they had kind of that right guidance and then followed their attorney's guidance as well, which is a key to this whole thing. We've seen a lot of advisors get the guidance from the attorneys and then try to do something on their own.
Yeah, I can't tell you how much the guidance differs from attorney to attorney. I've been working with a W-2 financial advisor who is looking to go independent, and he got put in front of an attorney that I've never heard of, which I feel like is pretty rare for us for as long as we've been in this, Jeff. But they basically instructed him that after he resigned, he basically just had to sit at his desk and sweat and literally like wait for his phone to ring, which once the advisor told me that, I told them that that's not anywhere near the truth and that he has to have a conversation with another attorney. And that attorney gave him kind of a step-by-step process, which made much more sense. But you'd be shocked how much the advice quality can be from one attorney to another.
Yeah, it can drive a lot of success and a lot of failure. There's no question on that as well. Again, at this point, this isn't, going west looking for gold and taking your, horse-drawn carriage across the Great Plains. This has been, very well tested by a lot of advisors and a lot of folks over the many, many years. So there's a lot of cases out there, a lot of case analysis, case studies, and it's kind of pretty well proven at this point. Certain things you can do, certain things you can't do. The one thing I would say when it comes to, and again, definitely self-serving, but not even, one of the things I've been noticing here more recently is large wirehouse teams that have been breaking away. And then you'll see, a industry consultant similar to ourselves, or us ourselves. So it's an advocate for the few consulting firms out there are actually out there. The firms are hiring the professionalism to help them. They recognize they can't do this all on their own. It's too complicated. And the largest teams, the largest firms, which is why we're dealing with so many of these billion-dollar plus teams ourselves, because they know they can't do it all themselves. There's too many questions, there's too many skeletons, there's too many things the broker dealers don't want you to know about themselves, that having someone like us as an advocate on their behalf really helps save a lot of time and money and risk.
100%. 100%. As we've mentioned, we've done this thousands of times before and have just learned so many mistakes, skeletons in the closet, best practices. No one knows your business better than you. And we are in this industry all day, every day with a combined 200 plus years of experience in this industry, to just help sit in the passenger seat with you along the way and just make sure that you're taking the least amount of wrong turns as possible. So I really hope this was helpful for everybody. If you have any questions at all, wherever you are in your process, I promise we could add a ton of value. Please just reach out. Our contact information is all over our YouTube page, our podcast. And if you have any questions, I really hope we could connect soon. Jeff, thanks again for hopping on.
Thanks, Corey. Thanks, everyone.